we'll have Professor Karandikar come in.
We are live, sir. Pradeep, sir, we are live.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. So welcome all to You and Institute. And this is about bringing the live interactions between Institute and you. And that is why we conceived this program. And we hope that this will go long. Thank you for joining us in this You and Institute session. We had the first session last week, and this is our second session. Welcome people from the Institute. We have Professor Karandikar. We have Deputy Director Professor Ganesh. We have Dean of Resource Professor Jayant. And we also have joining Professor Bandyopadhyay. So we have a number of people from the Institute. And from the U side, we have the batches of 1980, 1983, 84, 85, or 86, or we can say class of 80 to 86. The idea was that we have the contemporaries and we get them together. So in a normal way, in the last 4 years, as we saw, we did multiple events, face-to-face events, could be 100 events across the location, professional, family events. And one of the questions that always came was, Mera batch wala kaun aa raha hai? So the bonding with the batch was much, much stronger than rest of the people. And this we saw. So we saw whether it's a wingmate or a batchmate. And we said, why not look at, reaching out batch-wise? And one of the fundamental person then along with us who supports us is the batch coordinator. And batch coordinators largely happen when we had the reunions and we had the batch coordinator. But as we're going ahead, even when the students graduate, we have the batch coordinators. And so we have a new format where we leverage the batch coordinators, connect with their own batch, and we get the batches. So UNI is one method in which we are reaching out. And the first topic that we have taken is SMRT, School of Medical Research and Technology. So modeling around this UNI and the first topic, we want to keep this more like an informal. It should be interactive. And while we have a normal conversation and we meet our long time friends, we also dwell on a specific topic. And we believe that this interaction would lead us then to some really credible outcome. And what I'll do now is run through the agenda. And we will also see what we could possibly accomplish with all of us together. So we have a fireside chat with Director Professor Karandikar. And we will also look at a short presentation from his side as he would share his perspective on SMRT. And after that, we have a perspective from the speakers from the participating batches, and largely covering the healthcare industry, its regulation structure, and also academic interactions. And these we have sort of, aggregated into 4 specific areas, but people are free to, add more thoughts which may come to them. So medical devices, pharma, biotech, and healthcare IT. Around 11 p.m., which is where we will have a Q&A and interactions led by Rajiv Swarup, who's our senior alum, and Kapil Kaul, who is joining us in IIT Development Fund. And then we have concluding remarks from Dora, Professor Jayant Singh. And then there are some thoughts which also would be shared as what we will be doing next. So here we are with the batch coordinators. And I hope all can see the screen.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So from 1980, we have Pradeep Parekh, 1983, Sanjeev Marela. And Sanjeev actually has also been one of the people who led Prime 83, which is the initiative from 83 batch, and in order to see how we can invest in the startups. So he's been involved in the batch, has been involved in Prime 83 as one of the initiatives. And we have Sanjay, 1984, Sanjay Ankar, Radip Bhasin, 1985, and we have Ajit Das, who has been pulling all the people together in the last event also, and in this one, 1986. And here we have the list of speakers across the batches. We have, and this is the order we will follow as far as the speaking is concerned. And so we have Professor Siddharth Das Gupta, Director of Strategic Planning, Amgen, and I will also introduce when we have the speaker invites Pramad Singh, Professor Sudhakar, Dave Janeja, Sandeep Marilla, Sanjay Banerjee, Anurag Srivastav, Professor Vijay Kumar, Rajiv Chopra, Professor Rajesh Gupta, Professor Kaushal Chari, Sanjeev Narayan, Professor Sudipta Maiti, Anurag Agarwal. So we have two Anurags here, and Vishwajit Sinha. So if you really look at it, it is like more than 2 or 3 boards of various companies, and we have all of them together tonight, this evening, to have interaction and sharing their thoughts. So with this thought, I would like to invite Professor Karandikar.
Thank you.
So welcome, Professor Karandikar, and we had a good session last time. It was great to have you share with us, and people are looking forward to it once again. And this time, as we discussed last time, we really want your thoughts around this particular initiative that has happened, School of Medical Research and Technology. So welcome, Professor Karandikar, and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pradeep. First of all, a very warm welcome to all of you. I think these you and I sessions have been a great success, and I'm able to meet a large number of you, of course, on the virtual platforms, and someday I hopefully we will be able to welcome you on the campus as well. I mean, before I just go into SMRT, I just wanted to say that in the last 2 years, we have taken many initiatives. 2 new departments have been set up. One is Department of Cognitive Sciences, and another one is Department of Sustainable Energy Engineering. So these are the 2 new departments. We will be, of course, starting with the graduate level program, Masters and PhD, but down the line, we will be definitely introducing the undergraduate programs, both in cognitive as well as in sustainable energy engineering. The other initiatives that, one of the big initiatives that we have taken, and that of course concerns all of you, is to setting up of a separate not-for-profit company called IITKanpur Development Foundation, IITKDF, whose sole agenda will be to interact with all the alumni, our industry and corporates, friends and partners and stakeholders, and raise the resources for the institute. This IIT Kanpur Development Foundation has an independent board. It has Dr. BVR Mohan Reddy, who is a chairman of Science Corporations and also one of our alumnus. He's on the board. We also have Rajiv Ranjan, who is the president of IITK Foundation in US. He's on the board. And we have Mr. Rajiv Saroop, who is actually instrumental in organizing these sessions also. He's on the board. And of course, myself, and then Deputy Director Professor Ganesh and Dean of Resources and Alumni Professor Jain Singh are ex officio members of the board. Thanks to the efforts of Mr. Arun Seth and the selection committee, we have been able to hire a professional CEO, Mr. Kapil Kaul. So, Kapil, are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm very much here.
So I'm, very pleased to introduce Kapil to all of you. He comes with a background in the industry of more than 3 decades. And the last decades was spent in alumni relations, and more recently he was handling all the alumni relations of IIT Bombay and making sure that IIT Bombay goes to the next level. And since I'm now as the director of IIT Bombay, we have been able to, since I'm from IIT Bombay and now the director, we have been able to get Kapil Kaul now to IIT Kanpur. So Kapil joins as the CEO of IITK Development Foundation from February 1st, and he will be interacting with all of you. So that's, I thought, that is one more development. Now, coming to the School of Medical Research and Technology, let me just share some slides so that I will give a quick introduction. Can you see the slides?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So, I think, can you see the next slide now? I'm not very sure.
No, it's the slide. Yeah, now we can.
So slides are not moving, no? I think so. That is some problem, Sandeep. You have to fix it in Workspace. So, so let me just. Okay. So I think this just wants to tell you that in the last 20 years or so, IIT Kanpur has done some very pioneering work in the area of biomedical research and medtech innovation.
Just move.
It started with setting up the Department of Biological Sciences and Bioengineering in 2001. We also have an undergraduate program where the admissions are done through the JEE. But also the life science course is taught to all the first year students along with physics, chemistry and mathematics.
Can everybody mute their? Can everybody mute because we are hearing all background?
Okay. In 2014, we had set up the National Center for Flexible Electronics. This is actually one of its kind center working in the area of organic semiconductors and printable electronics on any substrate like paper or plastics and so on. And there have been a lot of work in the area of wearable healthcare devices by the NC Flex. Then with the support from BIRAX, we set up the bio incubator in 2014, and there have been several grants from the BIRAX and Department of Biotechnology, including the IIT Kanpur King George Medical University Clinical Immersion Program. In 2018, we also set up the experimental animal house facility, where our bioscientists and faculty members and researchers from other departments also, they can actually do animal trials for their research. 2019, we have also set up a center for fabrication and testing of medical devices. This is again one of its kind of center. We do not have any center in the country which can actually test and certify the medical devices. And I would say that going forward, this will actually play a very, very significant role. In 2019, with the support from the Mehta Family Foundation, We also set up the Mehta Family Center for Engineering and Medicine. In fact, a new building and an infrastructure is now being created. And last year, actually, the ICMR set up centers of excellence in medical research in 3 institutes in the country. IIT Kanpur was one of them, with a support of about 20 crores. And Department of Biotechnology has also set up a school for healthcare innovations and entrepreneurships. So these are some of the milestones that were there in the biomedical research and medtech innovations. We have a very strong ecosystem of basic research in biological sciences and bioengineering, bioincubator, engineering in medicine, and a very close collaborations with King George Medical University, Lucknow, and SGPGI, and also All India Institute of Medical Sciences in Delhi. I just want to say that the Department of Biological Sciences and Bioengineering is rated as one of the top program in the country, and also in terms of citations per research papers, we are actually leading. We have a very world-class faculty. Last year, the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize in Medical Sciences was also given to one of the faculty in Biosciences and Bioengineering, Dr. Bushra Atiq. The department is also involved in many technology development. These two are some of the samples. As I said, that we have also set up 2 new research centers which is focusing on medical technology. One is the Mehta Family Center for Engineering and Medicine. In fact, a new building whose photograph is shown here is coming up. And this center will focus on regenerative medicines, molecular medicines, and digital medicines. This is essentially a multidisciplinary research center. And we are also having a very large program between IIT Kanpur and King George Medical University, where our students will get an opportunity to work with doctors in the clinical settings, including, for example, surgeons in the operation theaters, and learn and innovate, medical devices. In fact, many of these things have been sort of done in the last 5 years or so. We have 7 state-of-the-art technologies have been commercialized, and out of more than 60 plus startups which have been incubated in the campus and currently are there on the campus, 13 of them are in the area of life sciences and the medical devices, and they are in all areas like assistive technology, AI in telemedicine and healthcare, medical implants and biosensors, medical devices for screening and diagnosis, virtual reality. So on all these startups have attracted seed and VC investments, in their domains. In the COVID period, we also developed an invasive portable ventilator by one of our incubating company, which is Noka Robotics. And we had a very strong consortiums of some IIT Kanpur alumni, medical professionals, our faculty. In fact, Shrikant Shastri, who is here, was closely involved with this. And all the experiences of these successful partnerships, Shrikant and Professor Amitabh Bandyopadhyay, they have written in a book. The book will be released in March. And I really invite you, all of you, to have a look at this. This has been a very, very successful product deployed in more than 500 hospitals in critical care settings in the country. In the institute, eSpin Nanotech had also set up a manufacturing facility where they are developing, nanofiber-based N95 mask. In fact, every day, about 25,000 masks are being manufactured. And so far, 25 lakhs masks have been sold and distributed across the country. You can see here the Prime Minister also was wearing this mask during one of the very important events when he had gone to Ayodhya. So we are really very proud of this. In fact, we had sent those to all the important people, and I'm very happy to see that this was really used by the Prime Minister. Uh, so, so we believe that we have a very strong basic research focus, engineering in medicine, medtech research, and also a world-class incubation systems. In fact, our incubator in general has been doing extremely well in the last 3 years. That is also being run by a separate Section 8 company, and where we have on the board our alumni, Dr. Saurabh Srivastav, Shrikant Shastri, who have been really instrumental in for successful bootstrapping of many of the incubating companies. However, even despite all these things, the lack of clinical setup on the campus has posed certain problems. First of all, of course, the research is restricted to using animal models, and there is, of course, a significant delay in immediate clinical validations. So we believe that medical program will actually fill that gap. Not only that, it will also give an opportunity for medical professionals to earn minor degrees in interdisciplinary areas. For example, the medical professionals can do DM in cardiology with minor in computer science or data science or artificial intelligence or IoT, cybersecurity, or you could have orthopedics major with minor in robotics or material science and so on. And this is really exclusively possible in technology institutions like IIT Kanpur, but it's not possible even in the All India Institute of Medical Science. So we are planning to make it in 2 phases. In phase 1, it is planned to have a super specialty hospital with 450 beds and centers of excellence in futuristic medicine. The hospital part will be run again by a separate not-for-profit company. And the centers of excellence will be giving master's degree, DNB, DM, MCH, and also MS and PhD degrees in molecular medicine, biomedical engineering. And we will also have a programs in entrepreneurial development and management. Essentially, it will be having a multidisciplinary graduate and postdoctoral research programs with a super specialty hospital. In phase 2, depending upon the success of the phase 1, we might start an undergraduate programs and also have a teaching hospital. So phase 1 is expected to be launched in next 3 to 5 years. And phase 2, of course, we are thinking of a long-term plan of 10 years down the line. These are the centers of excellence which are planned. Center of excellence in telemedicine, in AI applications, molecular medicines, cancer research, radio diagnosis, tropical and infectious disease, and so on. And all these centers of excellence will basically work with the core clinical departments. We are having about 9 clinical departments, and also the biomedical expertise which exists across the departments in the institute. This is the proposed site. If you see, then this is the main gate of the institute, and this is where the visitors hostels, and this is our academic area. This is the site which is currently behind Hall 10. I think many of you might not have seen Hall 10. But the entrance for the hospital will be from this other side of the institute. So basically, the patients, if they come, they really don't go through the entire campus. So this is, the proposed architectural plan. We have engaged a consulting firm, which is actually working out, all these details. How all of you can collaborate? We want to forge the world-class international collaborations with some of the universities. In fact, we are in talks with some universities. We would like to have this hospital and school built up in public-private partnerships. So we would like, alums to donate financially or take IIT Kanpur to potential donors. And of course, we are willing to brand name the school and the COE and the hospitals and so on. So this is the rough estimated cost of the projects in the phase 1. It is about 450 crores. We are working very closely with for the hospital part with the top leading doctors, Dr. Devi Prasad Shetty, who was introduced to us by Arun Seth. And in fact, Arun Seth is also, very closely working with the team. He has been, in fact, instrumental in ramping up the project so far. So we are very closely working with Devi Shetty and Narayana Ridhayale, Dr. Maman Chandi, Tata Medical Center, and recently also we had Dr. Shailesh Rena, who is the leading renal transplant surgeon in Mumbai and director of urology on board. Then Mrs. Sudha Murthy, Ramdurai also have kindly agreed. Mr. Saurabh Chandra is our alumnus and Rakesh Sharma is also alumnus. So they are on the advisory board currently. And we would like really your support to take this ambitious project forward, because we believe that the next generation research in healthcare is going to happen through engineering and technology interventions, where medical professionals also need to know about the engineering and technology, and engineering and technologists also need to work very closely with the medical doctors. The hospital part, of course, will also have a social outreach things, which will think of developing providing affordable healthcare and making its impact in the area in and around Kanpur and the state of Uttar Pradesh. So it has, that part as well. So there is this SMRT team, as I already have introduced you, Kapil Kaul, who is the CEO of IIT Kanpur Development Foundation. Professor Ganesh is actually leading the entire task force, and we have Rajiv Sarup and Jayant Singh who are on the call assisting us. So thank you very much. I think I'll be happy to take any questions or any doubt.
So thank you, Professor. So there are some questions which I had, and we will go back to also our audience for this question. So I'll go back to 2-3 years back when you joined, and the question was, what are the key initiatives that we must think? So in the last 2-3 years, what I realized that you have worked on building the strategy, vision, goals for the institute. So can you share 2 or 3 key initiatives that you've taken in addition to SMRT, which is one of the initiatives that we see is growing really large?
Yeah. So I think, so first of all, we have strengthened our alumni relations. So I think that is reflected here. The second part is that we have significantly strengthened our international collaborations. We now have the joint PhD programs with a few international universities. We have set up a RICE, along with the RICE University, RICE IIT Kanpur Center of Excellence, which is in the area of energy. We have also set up with Australian University, La Trobe IITK Research Academy, which is working in the area of smart city. And La Trobe, an Australian government has made a significant investment in that. They have given a lot of money to IIT Kanpur also. With the NYU, also we have a joint PhD degree program. So we have basically strengthened our international relationships in the last 1.5 years or so. As I already mentioned, we have started 2 new departments, and we are actually now doing a significant faculty growth and hiring. In the last 2.5 years, we have given offers to 155 faculty members, and 90 of them have already joined the institute in the last 2.5 years. We are also doing a significant infrastructure growth in the institute with this expansion. And of course, our focus is to increase the research in all areas of science and engineering, and to take the research to make the institute like as a globally recognized institution. We are also contributing to some very major national level missions like Clean Ganga or environmental pollutions, and also as I mentioned, flexible electronics, cyber security. Recently in the cyber security, we have a big technology innovation hub with an investment of about 170 crores from the Department of Science and Technology. And you can say that IIT Kanpur is one of the leading institutes in the area of cyber security now. I mean, it is the one-stop shop for the government to look at in the area of cyber security. So I think these are some of the major initiatives.
Excellent. So that brings us to the next question. When IIT Kanpur started, and there was this program on KIAP, and the question then was that now that we are coming with a medical institute, would it help us again to propel back into global excellence? And this is what all the alums are looking at, whether we really excel now, just not only in India, but at a global level. So what are your perspectives on that?
Yes, I think, as you know, that IIT Kanpur was instrumental in starting and was the first to start the computer science program back in the 70s. And then, of course, other institutions followed the education in computer science. I believe that engineering in medicine and also a strong medical program with a difference, which can have the engineering component, it can actually not only be a differentiator in the medical program, but can also take the institute to the next level. So I think that is why, with this vision and ambition only, we have started, this program.
So as the vision becomes grand, and then the people have this question that what we really need to do to realize it. So from your perspective, what are the key challenges or expectations you have in the next 6 to 9 months, so that we not only move towards this objective, but make sure that what we have set out to do will definitely be achieved?
So I think in the next 6 to 9 months, we are really looking forward to set up a clinical hospital. I mean, start actually building towards that. And because, this will attract us to hire good quality medical faculty into the campus as a part of the faculty. In the phase 1, we are planning to have about 40 to 50 faculty members and about 60 to 70 resident doctors. Of course, hospital will have much larger workforce, but that will be a part of the not-for-profit company. But in order to have this 30 to 40 medical faculty, we have spoken to many of them, and they are really keen. And in fact, as I mentioned, Dr. Devi Shetty and Dr. Mamin Chandy, and they are already assured the help in identifying that. But obviously, you will not have a clinical faculty unless you have a clinical setup or a hospital. So I think that is the first step towards that. And then the next step, of course, is to set up those centers of excellence, which I mentioned, which will have, a very strong and which will leverage already existing expertise in IIT Kanpur. In fact, we have very, very carefully planned these centers of excellence to leverage the existing expertise of IIT Kanpur and also the clinical departments which need it in this state of Uttar Pradesh. So it is really a combination of that, the need in terms of healthcare and also the existing expertise in IIT Kanpur. So the plan is really to raise the resources in the next 1 year or so that we can set up these clinical settings and the centers of excellence.
So as I see, you're talking about resources, you're talking about infrastructure, and you're talking about people. And so those are key things that we must really look at.
Yes,
now,
yes.
Now going back to what happened in the last week, and we have seen that we have really accomplished alums, not only in a general way, but in specific medical and healthcare. So building on this large alum base, and although you touched upon it once again, I would like to see how we can really involve them. how we can really work with this alum community that is there and really work towards building a globally uh, excellent institute in the area of medical research.
So I think I have already mentioned the areas they can help forge international collaborations. I mean, I know that there are many here.
Yep.
Rajesh Gupta is there from UCSD. We have Vijay Kumar. I mean, I know all of them. So we are already actually working with UCSD. For example, Shankar Subramaniam is already closely working with biosciences and bioengineering. So help forge international collaborations is one. Identify the resource faculty who can spend time. And I already mentioned we would also, of course, need the funding. In the phase one, we need about 450 crores. We are looking to raise the resources from individual donors, corporate donors, CSR funds, industries, in any forms which is possible. So there are many ways in which, and once, these centers of excellence are set up, once the medical faculty comes, then we can also plan for what kind of research collaborations can be set up, maybe down the years, 2-3 years down the line. I just want to mention here that among the IITs, IIT Kharagpur has already started a school of medical research, and they are doing exactly the opposite than what we are doing. They are starting an MBBS undergraduate program. They have already built a hospital, teaching hospital though, and they are going to admit the MBBS students from the July session onwards. But actually, we don't want to get into the undergraduate MBBS teaching right now. We really want to focus it on the super specialty and more on the research part. So I think that is the difference.
Okay, I think that gives us a good perspective, and this also then allows me to bring our alums to share their views. So thank you, Professor Karadikar. You have to be here, and we will have a quick Q&A a little later. So now I would like to start our alums perspective. I would like to invite Professor Siddharth Dasgupta, who's Director of Strategic Planning, Amgen. It is one of the largest biotech companies with a $24 billion revenue. And he has been sort of engaged in management of large funding for the universities. So please welcome Siddharth Dasgupta.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and I would like to thank our batch coordinator, Pradeep Parikh, and good to see my fellow batchmates Prabhat Singh and Sudhakar also. So I'm the Director of Strategic Planning for Research at Amgen, and I've been about 2 years in this job. Before this, I was for 33 years at Caltech in various capacities as a research faculty and then managing a fairly large multi-university, multi-research, multidisciplinary centers funded by NSF. So after coming to Amgen, I realized how much more complex the drug design looks like when you're actually in the middle of drug design. It's not just the initial drug discovery that you can kind of find small molecules or now increasingly more multi-specific biologic drugs, which are another level of complexity. But after that, there is actually a lot of, as Professor Karandikar already mentioned, animal testing, non-human primates, things like pharmacokinetics and drug metabolism, and then eventually, of course, going into the clinic for phase 1, 2, and 3 clinical trials. So my perspective is from that of Caltech and Amgen. Caltech is a little bit like what IIT Kanpur was when I graduated in 1980, a small, highly excellent research institute, research-driven undergraduate and graduate program institute. And it doesn't have a medical school, none of the other professional schools. So what I saw at Caltech was, over the years, they were collaborating especially in biology, with nearby medical schools like UCLA, University of Southern California, And there was a local, very large hospital in Pasadena called Huntington, which had a medical research institute. And so there was a lot of collaboration. And what happened over the 90s and the 2000s was that a lot of the biological uh, research was going more in the direction of medical and clinical research. And so Caltech felt the pressure that they need to do something. And as a small institute, they cannot have a large hospital. So what they decided to do was set up some of these centers of research excellence. So for example, they just established a translational medical research institute, which kind of bridges the gap between fundamental research and clinical medical research. And yesterday, they actually inaugurated a very large building for the neurosciences, Chen Neuroscience Institute. So when I think about all of this, and I'll be short because I know there's a lot of speakers. So when I think about this, the ecosystem that I see is that the universities primarily do a lot of the fundamental research that establishes mechanisms of action and the fundamental basics of biology. And neuroscience is a very good example where there's still a lot that's unknown. Good examples of places where universities can help are like the Broad Institute at MIT that is working a lot on CRISPR technology, which got the Nobel Prize last year. So I think Professor Karandekar's vision has already covered most of what I was going to say. A medical school where you can actually do clinical research is a fairly long haul enterprise, but it can be done and it will take time. So it will be a little bit of time. So I'll stop over there because I know there's a lot of other speakers.
Yeah, I
Thank
think
you
you
very much.
mentioned that there are stepwise approaches that were taken in your own experience. And secondly, I think the area where you have been involved in this university resource across, I think those are the areas that we will really look at from you.
Thank you.
So thank you. And I'd like to invite Prabhat Singh, who has actually been anyway involved in the SMRT discussions. He's currently the chairman, India Gas Solution. And earlier he was MD CEO Petronet, and before that, Director Martingale. And he has certain thoughts how we can really go about from SMRT perspective. So Prabhat Singh.
Thank you, Pradeep. And thank you to the batch coordinator, Parik. And very happy to see Siddharth after a very long time. Sudhakar, I met some time back, and Himesh, I have always been interacting. So thank you so much giving me this opportunity. Now, obviously, I'm not from the medical field, so I would not be commenting on that. But after hearing everybody and after having interacted with Professor Karandikar and Professor Jayan, I feel definitely the right direction we are going, and to bring the institute back into name and fame, I think this is one of the ways in which we can do it. But I would say that let's try and narrow down the complete perspective. And therefore, what I'm trying to say is let's work backwards in the sense that while narrowing down the research, etc., I'm saying that in the Indian context, let's try, and the advisory board should sit down and actually, perhaps they might have already done it. And pardon me if I'm trying to do this. I'm only saying that there is a large mass of people here in India who suffer with certain problems in terms of certain verticals. I would say diabetes is one, or cardiac is something, or lung diseases are something because of pollution, etc. So I would say that let's do an ABC analysis and basically try and narrow down exactly, because there's a large spectrum. If we start doing everything at the same time, it will be difficult. But if we build up step by step as a niche expertise and a niche product which we churn out, the whole issue can be like, for instance, if you pick up diabetes, then every research, every faculty, every resident doctor, every infrastructure, everything which we are talking about will revolve around that. So we'll be more focused on this. So therefore, once we have done this particular analysis on this ABC part, we narrow down on this and then we iterate in terms of what competencies we already have, because we see lot of activity, like for instance Professor Karandikar mentioned the mask thing, the incubator thing, something to do with urine, etc. I was seeing in one of those slides which have been talked about. So you have already certain things which you are kind of using the technology to democratizing the whole issue and bringing it to the masses. So I would say one is that what all competencies we have, then we say what all infrastructure is already available, so that we have to put up only the add-ons to whatever infrastructure is already there. One very important fact which we must also keep in mind is what is the government of India focus actually. Because the point is, if you are in sync with the focus and if you are resonating with that, then the idea of you being recognized and being picked up and being talked about is much higher. So therefore, that is one part. And one important part which is anyway coming out with whatever research has been done till now is that the healthcare is actually moving away from hospitals to the homes, to the villages, to the centers. So we need to keep that also in mind while we are trying to focus on and narrowing down on everything. So that once we have done this, then we look at the resources, what is required. And here I would say that when we look at the resources, the first and most important part is that we must engage, and like Professor Karandikar said, out of 155 applications, 90 have already joined. Best in class, world class, we must actually engage. Because if you begin with a the aim that you are going to hit the globe with whatever you're doing, you must pick up the best. And there I would say that we must not even think about whether we'll have the budget or not. Let us be confident that if we are asking for 450 crores, we'll get 1,000 crores when we go out into the system. You have all your alumni, you have everybody into the system. They will be in a position to come out with this. So let's keep that part out, that we will not be able to raise the budget. So money should not be a constraint. The constraint should be that are we able to pick up the person or the persons who are going to initiate all this to make it world class. And while we are doing, the packages which we need to offer them should be world class. And most importantly, their families which are going to come and stay in a place like Kanpur, we must try and see how we accommodate them and their aspirations so that they actually stick to this. So in a very nutshell, I'm just trying to say that we need to dwell more and focus everything so that when we start later on, we can build up. Because I think there are some 7 options which were being given and talked about. Let us say that out of those, we pick up 1 or 2, build up everything around that, get some name there, and then we keep provision for actually building up all the 7 when we go forward. Now coming to the quick part that,
Yeah, I think.
Pardon?
Yeah. So I was just trying to summarize. So what you're saying, go for excellence,
Yes.
and the money will follow.
Yes. Let me just, last part I'm just trying to say now is that the funding part. And immediately I would just try to update Professor Karandikar. The new managing director is going to join Monday or Tuesday PLL. I have already talked to him. This week, any time which is convenient to you, just let me know. I will organize a discussion with him, with you. I have already actually interacted with the chairman of the CSR committee, etc. I have put in a word there. And one very important fact is that the previous secretary to the president, Mr. Sanjay Kothari, is actually a Kanpur alumni. So if everything goes well, and now today he is the CVC of the country. So I can organize a discussion with him and see, because he's a great enthusiast on CSR activity, especially for the alumni from the institute. And the other part is the current president, the secretary to the president, Mr. Tripathi. I worked with him very closely as well. So in case there is a situation where Professor Karandikar you want, then both these people, I can actually organize a discussion for you, and let's see how it moves, so that if there is somebody from the president house trying to make a point to the secretary petroleum and to the minister and everybody, it may help. So this is the nutshell which I was wanted to say. That's all. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for the assurance. Professor Karandikar, any word from your side?
No. I just wanted to say that I think what the point which Mr. Prabhat Singh has mentioned are very apt. In fact, the clinical areas that we have identified relates to this fact that what is the disease prevalence in these areas. So that is, I think, very important point which I have already taken it into account. His other point is that, and that we have been always saying that centers of excellence and the research spreads critically in any university setup depends critically upon the faculty members. And then once you identify the right faculty members, actually they are able to forge research alliance, they are able to generate research money and get research grants, etc. I mean, that we have seen already in the institute it in the last 60 years or so, that all it has happened is because of the faculty. So I think that is also an important aspect, and I think that is also very well taken. I mean, and the 450 crores that I talked about is in that sense is really a seed money to start.
Exactly.
And because I just want to say that as an institute, like an IIT Kanpur as an institute, per year we spent about 900 to 1,000 crores. I mean, we get about 550 crores from the government grants, and we generate another 400 crores through our internal earnings, either from the sponsored research or other internal resources. So we have a budget of about 950 crores already. So, and this is every year. I mean, so what I'm saying is that this 450 crores is really just a start, and we hope to build on it as we get the faculty. So identifying and recruiting the right faculty and the right clinical doctors is really the key. And I think I'm 100% in agreement with that.
We should aim to get them to the Padma Shri or Padma Vibhushan as soon as possible. Then only
Yes,
they'll
sir.
stick to you.
So excellent. I think that brought us to that. Let us focus on excellence. Money will follow, and this is just a start. There is a long way to go. So I would invite now Professor Y Sudhakar, who's right now heading the Sahara Institute, and he's been focusing on solid state physics, but also he has experience in modeling epidemics. He's also been a president nominee in Vishwa Bharat University. So please welcome Professor Y Sudhakar.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. It's nice to see Siddharth and Prabhat. Also, very nice to see this new initiative by IIT Kanpur, headed by Professor Karandikar. Akash, can you? I prepared some slides. Akash, can you project my slides if possible?
Yeah, he is
Akash?
projected.
Oh, I see. I don't see it. That's why. Does everybody see my slides?
I think you just need to click the Akash's window there, and then it can come on the screen.
Oh, I see. I see. Oh, aha. Yeah.
Yes, we can see that, Sudhakar.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
So I put together some ideas and I interacted with a few of well-recognized people, both inside the country and outside. People associated with the IIT Kanpur and other IITs, and also Littlewood. He's my collaborator, and he started physics of medicine at Cambridge when I was on sabbatical at Cambridge. So I interacted with him also to put some ideas together. So can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. So these are some of my ideas. As far as medical device and drugs are concerned, the COVID pandemic has taught us a lesson that we can manufacture cheap vaccines that can be easily stored and transported, and these can cater to most of, at least large part of the world, more than half of the world. That includes 3 continents such as Asia, Africa, and South America. This idea of mass producing at a low cost can be extended to drugs, vaccines, and medical devices, keeping these 3 continents in mind. And the important point to notice is US has no model to make money with inexpensive and effective products. This is an important point, that inexpensive but effective products. Okay, that is our mantra. So regarding drugs, I mean, chemistry department can chip in, and regarding medical devices, I mean, all the departments from material science to mechanical engineering can help. Then I want to suggest public health research, especially epidemiology. We know directly from the coronavirus pandemic the need for realistic epidemiology and modeling. As you know, epidemiology is the study of how often diseases occur in different populations and why they occur. For this, I mean, very good data is needed, and in fact, IIT Kanpur, because of its computer science department, can be a good nodal point for collecting data. Right now, I mean, very good data, high quality data is not that easily available in India. Okay, so given IIT Kanpur's breadth, mathematical structure of epidemics can be easily done. So can we go to the next slide, please? Next slide, please. Akash, next slide. Thank you. So next one is on basic research in infection biology. So infectious diseases are caused by viruses, bacteria, parasites, which multiply within our bodies. And these pathogens, they infect the host through various routes, as we know in, for example, in the case of COVID, through inhalation of aerosol droplets, or through, in the case of malaria, it's through mosquito bites and so on. So infection biologists study various aspects of this pathogen biology and try to understand mechanisms of drug resistance and immune evasion, or investigate dynamics of infection. So most medical practices are strongly based on statistics and statistical correlations because the system is too complex. Okay, these are complex systems. We call them complex systems in physics, and there is not much theory that is present even at a phenomenological level. So maybe inclusive medical theory, even including theory of alternate medicine in modern science language, would be a bold but a good line of departure. So this is one suggestion that an inclusive medical theory is one thing that one can try to aim and develop. Usually biology and definitely medicine, these are all experimental sciences. Can you go to the next slide, please? Akash, thank you. Okay, this is one point which I thought should be mentioned. See, India has a wealth of knowledge in Ayurvedic medicine, and it's important to identify and extract the main molecule from herbs that cures an ailment. So there's a good example of this Chinese lady called Tu Yu, who identified the effective compound for curing malaria. She called it artemisinin, and she went on to win the Nobel Prize in 2015. So, I mean, I know that India, there are various people, I mean, starting from Asima Chatterjee onwards, people have done this in the recent past and so on. But still, I mean, there needs to be a methodical thing, and IIT Kanpur definitely can take a stab in this direction. Then this is the next point is something that Prabhat also was, I think, mentioning. That is, we need to identify what are the top causes of death. According to WHO 2018 data, coronary heart disease has the highest number of deaths, 1.73 million, followed by lung disease, followed by strokes, then influenza and pneumonia, then comes tuberculosis, diarrhea, diabetes, and so on. So among the centers of excellence, I did not see a center of excellence for coronary heart disease. Given that this has the highest number of deaths, I mean, this is something that probably IIT Kanpur can think about. I know that super specialty is there in heart-related matters, but how about a center of excellence? Okay. So, and of course, I mean, regarding brain research, I mean, there are many places, including, I mean, in Bangalore, in Delhi, and IIT Madras also has this. And in fact, one of IIT Kanpur alumni, a guy called Mriganka Sur, 1974 batch, He works on brain research. So maybe the batch can contact him also. And one of my classmates called Nethi Venkata Chalapati, he has a lot of experience dealing with neural networks and that sort of a thing. I mean, he could not come for some reason, but in the future, I think he should be able to join us. Okay, so this next one is the last slide.
So, Professor Thakur, I think we'll have to wrap up quickly so that we can get the
this is the
other
last slide.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the last slide. This is the last slide. So, I mean, there is a scope for a school of medical physics. I mean, Cavendish started this molecular biology lab under Bragg, and that produced a lot of great research, including DNA structure. Since Raman spectroscopy was discovered in India, I thought IIT Kanpur could use Raman spectroscopy to study early signs of cancer, tooth decay, and that sort of a thing. And in fact, in the physics department in IIT Kanpur, there's a distinguished professor called Ajay Sood. He's a world expert in Raman spectroscopy. So maybe his expertise can be tapped in. And then one can have non-invasive ways of diagnosing illness faster, cheaper, and more accurately. Okay. And the last one is biological physics, but that is a more complicated thing. One can, I suppose, sort of look at. This is understanding how, in an emergent way, one can understand biology. Okay, I'm done. I'm running out of time. Okay,
so thanks. I think you brought very good, clear points. I think just because of the paucity of time, we could really not get into detail. But there are follow-up sessions that will happen, and we will get into details. Okay. So with this, I would invite Dave Juneja, who's also been an investor and played a good role in the financial industry, been part of Exodus Point Capital. I would welcome Dave Juneja to share his views.
Hi, folks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I hope so. Hey, so you're right. I'm neither an expert in medicine, except as a consumer at this age, I guess, nor actually, to tell the truth, my life has taken me far away from engineering too. I'm in finance at this point in my life. And as I listen to this discussion, I think it's fantastic. I can see this as an initiative that, number one, makes sense, considering that medicine is moving in the direction of the confluence between medical work, engineering, and information sciences, data technologies, and all of that kind of stuff, which is coming out of the research in everything from AI to everything else that goes in that space. In the last 20 years. So the fact that IIT is getting involved, it's quite natural, and I kind of agree with Abhay when you said that the path you have taken is more from the research side of things as compared to being a undergrad MBBS program at this point. So this all makes sense. The point I want to talk about a little bit is about the fundraising. I mean, in the end, the Indian environment has been one in which IITs originally were funded by the government, and we are moving steadily towards this public-private kind of partnership where you're looking for funding in significant amounts, I assume, from the private sector, from donors, both from the private sector that might be involved in initiatives and spin-outs that come out of this exercise. So joint efforts between IIT and potentially medical technology companies or others. There are definitely examples of that, at least in the US, where there are commercial organizations that have set up campuses on university campuses. So places like Microsoft and Facebook and others which will have a building in the Harvard campus, for example, or something of that sort. Very close-knit relationship between a university and the specific organizations, and of course the last part, which is the private donor side of things. I think my thinking on this is that when I look at the private donor kind of thing, the charitable donorship kind of activities going on, IIT appears to be kind of at the early stages of that endeavor, especially compared to what I see out here in the US, for sure. the construction of this foundation, I think, is a good step, and having professionals organized in the fundraising effort is a good step. I also think that to some extent, and I tried some of this, and I can speak of at length, I guess, at some time on my own success or failure in terms of organizing the classmates that we have into this fundraising effort. It's not an easy exercise, especially when you're looking for large amounts of money. It's easy to ask someone for small amounts, but when you're looking for large amounts of money, and when you're setting up a big initiative like this, you are definitely looking for a large amount of money. Some of it will come from public sources, but some from private sources. It's not an easy organizational exercise. And to some extent, the same way as some of the previous speakers have mentioned, the specificity helps because it helps focus your attention. It makes it easier to achieve big things in narrow areas. Depth is better than breadth in some sense. I think that will also help in the fundraising effort. It's easier to rally a cause behind very specific things that you're looking for as compared to generic things saying, hey, we're going to be great in everything in medicine and technology kind of thing. And so those are the two main things that come to my mind. But I do believe that the first step, which is this foundation, is a very useful exercise indeed. And professional efforts in terms of organizing what the Institute is looking for relative to the alumni, which are very spread out at this point in time globally. And indeed, probably some of the people who are interested in participating are actually at a distance, so they can't really participate in terms of direct guidance or involvement. Are probably likely to be more involved, mostly from the money-raising point of view. It'll be a great thing for the foundation to organize that. Let me stop at that.
Thanks, Dave. So
I think I just want to sort of mention here that thank you, Dave. I think for your very crisp and to the point advice, and I think you are very right, and we are cognizant of this fact. In fact, and we have therefore, in terms of the fundraising efforts, we will organize the fundraising around certain centers of excellence, which will be set up, because as you rightly said that some donors may be interested in, and we have actually are making efforts that these therefore can be a named centers of excellence based upon the sort of donors, be it in the cardiology or nephrology and or infectious diseases or AI in telemedicine and things like that. So yes, I think that point is very well taken, and I think I will ask the IITK to have an organized fundraising efforts in some of these areas where the potential donors may find it attractive or may relate with the cause. I think that's that point is really sort of well taken. And suddenly we are not trying to be like doing everything in medicine, as I've already mentioned. In fact, some of the areas that we have identified, I did not get the time to go into details, but I did mention that it does depend upon what expertise that already exists in our biosciences and bioengineering department, and what is also the need in terms of the healthcare in the city and the state. I think so. That's a combination of that.
Yeah, I think we will continue to need Dave's help in modeling these initiatives for the fundraise and a professional one.
I think I just want to
mention,
I have to acknowledge here that Dave already has been a big contributor. So I think we do recognize. Yes.
Thanks, Dave. Next we have Sanjeev Madila, MD Sampura, and he's been consulting in multiple organizations. And as I mentioned earlier, he was also he's led Prime 83 as one of the known initiatives, and it's there on the website of Alum Association. Over to you, Sanjeev.
Thanks, Pradeep. Hopefully, it's not much feedback here. Hi, good morning to everybody from Chicago. I am actually one of those guys who was part of the first batch of computer science started at IIT Kanpur. This is It was a group of 17 of us, and there are actually 3 of us on the call today, at least Sriram Shankar and Jaideep Srivastava are also on the same call. So yeah, we started Prime 83 to kind of primarily at that point fund some entrepreneurial activity among the students. And that project has been going on for the last, I would say, 15 years now, since 2007, yeah, roughly 14 years. And we've had some successes with it. In fact, the success that we talked about of the ventilator project by Noka Robotics was a company that we funded. Actually, guys like Srinath Mukherjee and Rahul Sarup and others were part of the engagement in kind of identifying this group. And I actually mentored that group in the process of having them start their company. And Shrikant, of course, Shrikant Shastri from our batch was very instrumental, along with his role in promoting our entrepreneurship program, in kind of promoting them to do this very quick burn project and a successful outcome. So we have had a small little part in at least seeing the entrepreneurship side. My consulting background is management consulting. After being in the computer science space, I kind of switched over to consulting with Accenture and Deloitte. And in the course, I have done a lot of work with medical device companies. So I have some experience, although very little medical knowledge to guide you. I did start my PhD program at Johns Hopkins with the hope of doing an MD PhD in the kind of space, generally what you identified as orthopedics and computer science. I will beg to differ a little bit from the previous speakers in trying to make this institute based on the disease demographics of India or world, whatever you would call it. I think we've always had strengths in developing programs based on our skill-based strengths. For example, the computer science program became a luminary program within the institute as well as in the country because of what we were already doing back in the late 60s and 70s. In fact, Sriram's father was one of those people who was already there. Professor Rajaraman was already there. And so we already had a certain expertise and we very quickly built around that. I similarly, and again, please consider this just as a kind of a different view of it. I would consider that some of the strengths that we have used in developing expertise would have to come from our strength in the engineering program. Trying to solve problems from scratch, especially when there are so many institutes out there who are doing things from the medical side, even cardiac arrest part of it would be difficult. I know one of our classmates, Arup Chakraborty, is at MIT, and Arup has been doing a lot of work from a chemical engineering point of view in helping deploy HIV vaccine. But those institutes are funded by millions or maybe even billions of dollars, called Koch Institute at MIT. So that's why we don't have those deep pockets. We have to build on the strength and expertise. So with the little that I know, I would say there is clearly an expertise around computer science, and especially in gene sequencing and others that we would, or combinatorial expertise that we have, we would extend that into some kind of gene therapy. And again, I will leave it to the experts for this moment. But I would say, instead of driving it from the end user point of view, we have to drive it from the point of where our strengths are at this point. And then we might be able to just imagine if a COVID-like situation happened again, anything that we predict as the disease demographics will not help us. We have to come up with creatively what our skill set is. And that's why I feel we'll be much more successful in that area.
So you're saying that, let us focus, anyway, those thoughts are there, what competence we have, let us leverage that and start from that perspective.
Yeah,
so I think those points
we should look at the 10 things that we have done in the last 10 years that we have gotten significant traction, or we have some intellectual property, or we have the right talent of people there right now. Because let's not forget that despite the high profile that Institute has had for the last 60 years, we've always had difficulty attracting people to Kanpur. And that will always remain a problem because if we can attract a person, somebody who's coming there because they like Abhay very much, or they like they like to be close to their family or whatever else. It is not easy to attract people.
I say one of the other speaker also mentioned, make it a place where people want to be. And so as we're building excellence.
So,
So,
so I have to just say here one thing that, so first of all, I think Sanjeev's point is, I think, very well taken. So I think, thank you. In fact, I also mentioned that all the things that we have carefully worked out is based upon our expertise in the institute and the combination of that. I mean, we did not say that, only the disease prevalence or only the expertise. So it is a combination of that. The other thing is that I think the institute in the last 20 years has developed very significant expertise in the basic biosciences research in the form of our Department of Biological Sciences and Bioengineering. So it is not just computer science and so on.
No, I mean, I completely understand that, and I am somewhat ill-informed about it. I'll leave it to other people to talk about that part. But I just wanted to emphasize the fact that, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So what I was saying is that the other part is that having a state-of-the-art super specialty hospital in some area in the campus also has some, I mean, apart from all these research and other things, also has an element of attracting good faculty members in engineering departments, in electrical engineering and computer science, because many of the faculty members that I have spoken to, in fact, some of the good faculty members have, in the middle age, have quit IIT Kanpur and joined IIT Bombay and IIT Delhi because they told, that they have their aged parents or they have their middle-aged things and they have to take care of them, and the healthcare facility in the city of Kanpur is and in a around area is not adequate. So this is also actually, so having a good healthcare facility, having a good educational facility, and having a good life is also an attraction for attracting faculty members, even in engineering disciplines. So actually, it will even serve that purpose as well.
No, I completely agree with. I will wrap up quickly with the other point about the fundraising thing. When we did the Prime 83 fundraising back in 2006, 2007 timeframe, we were able to raise or at least get commitments for somewhere in the range of $250,000. This number that you're asking for is only $60 million. There are 60 batches, and even if you raise half of the money, every batch could possibly raise $500,000. But I don't think that is the only expense you are going to incur. This is just the seed money, as you mentioned. So I think, in addition to the batchmates having to, contribute money, we have to actively seek out for international organizations. Maybe it's kind of the Moderna type of organizations that are looking to do some work in India, in addition to the research they're doing in US, or the Koch Institute that was doing research in Boston, that will require some amount of fundraising. So I don't think it's a difficult task. We on the Prime 83 side, we have been trying to spend the money that we raised, and we are looking for more and more entrepreneurial initiatives at this point. And we would be happy to start another effort for this. And we feel very confident that our group can do something very similar to what we did earlier. With that, I appreciate the efforts and thank you for giving me a chance. And I've got a couple of the batchmates that I'd like to connect with this. And so thank you. Thanks, Pradeep.
We will move on to the next speakers, but I would just request people to limit it to 3 minutes because still we have a long list of speakers. And over to Sanjay Banerjee, who has been partner in AMROP, investor. He's been a CEO with Zimmer, and he's also been. Sanjay is there?
Oh, hi. First and foremost, thank you very much for organizing this call. Just to give you a brief, my foray into the pharmaceutical and medical technology and healthcare space, or whatever related to the Indian context, has been during my stint primarily with ICI Pharmaceuticals, Baxter, and then with Zimmer, which were basically in the area of primarily medical device and technology related to critical care, renal, transfusion therapy, and then of course orthopedics. I'll keep it short. My perspective and comments are going to be basically broadly into three areas. One is, of course, related to capacity creation at IIT Kanpur and how it leads to the collective national effort. Uh, then, related to that, some comments or maybe some considerations for curriculum, and finally, something which can lead to some kind of funding mechanism or partnership, which I'll come to. So basically, first and foremost, I think it's a great initiative where, as we all of us in the health in the Indian healthcare context know, that's more than 60% of our population resides in rural areas and small towns, whereas it's only more than almost 70% of our healthcare service provision is actually in the large towns, in metropolitan cities, and urban areas. To the extent that you locate, and especially when obviously India has a huge amount of challenges related to both primary, secondary, and tertiary care. But I also agree with Professor Karandekar and Sanjeev, as he mentioned, is that we should play to our strengths. There are certain specific skill sets that we also possess: our engineering discipline, the biotechnology, and the medical device initiatives that we have fostered in the institute over the last 10-15 years. I think we need to play to that strength, and therefore provision of super specialty treatment facilities being available at Kanpur is going to be good for from the perspective of the patients. But more important, I think from the perspective of the fact that we need specialists, we do need trained paramedical personnel, technicians, to be able to offer these services. And the reason I'm saying this is, we are, one thing which is there is, in terms of medical technology, there are various technologies which are being incubated within IIT Kanpur. I have faced it, the lack of testing facilities for new product introductions, and what you have in terms of testing and calibration facility that you've set up in IIT Kanpur can probably act as a kind of a model to be replicated across the country. Along with that, the other thing which is there is related to you do need a hospital nearby, which was there in your presentation, so that you can actually conduct trials apart from animal models. Developing a transparent, predictable clinical trial protocols and the regulatory framework, if it starts off from an institution like IIT Kanpur, can hopefully probably influence the government positively. So effectively, I think that's related to the capacity creation. One area which I do believe in the set of specialities that you mentioned is I didn't see nephrology, because I think specifically related to transplantation and dialysis is something which plays to what you are, the skill sets that you have available in IIT Kanpur currently, and what you also seem to be doing some work. And why there is a lack of severe dearth of nephrologists in the country. Related to curriculum, I think this is one which is, just to share with my experience, which I have seen in areas like orthopedics, trauma. We have so many of these road accidents. There are trauma. Fact is that most of the even the super specialty hospitals like AIMS, etc., in the postgraduate curriculum, they basically just undergo basic surgery. And quite often, all they learn, let's say there is a complicated fracture or even a simple fracture, they just know a procedure. They're given a recipe. This is how you are actually supposed to be treating a fracture. But what happens is, if you see most of these trauma procedures, most of these joint replacement procedures, if you really see, you're talking about various forces, and how do you, for instance, for union of two fractures, what are the kind of forces, and how do you, the mechanobiology of the trauma surgeries, which enables you to probably treat or undertake the surgery in a more successful manner. Now, these are some of the things which can be there in the curriculum in terms of differentiating yourself. The last bit that I mentioned about was partnerships. While you would look at partnership with institutions, and logically we have a lot of connects, especially in the US. One institution which I know for the last 4 or 5 years, especially in the area of orthopedics, has been looking for partnership, and they were looking for partnership in the private sector, basically for lack of initiatives in the government sector, was the orthopedic stream of the NHS of UK. They have this Indo-UK partnership initiative. They intend setting up facilities for orthopedics curriculum med schools across the country. They've done something in Andhra and Central India. IIT Kanpur could be one, and that could also be a mechanism of fund generation. So these were the 3 points which I thought I'll raise here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sanjay. I think all points are very relevant. And the team will anyway be following up with all the speakers subsequently. Right now, we're just looking at those critical points that we can cover in a short time. So thank you. And may I welcome Anurag Srivastav from Janssen Pharmaceuticals. And he has experience in drug discovery, but he's also shared what's going to work from future perspective on drug discovery. Anurag.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So I have almost close to 30 years of experience in discovery of small molecules as in various disease areas. So I'm going to quickly go over what kills Indians. So the top killer is cardiovascular disease, which is 25%. Respiratory disease is 10%. Tuberculosis is 10%. Cancer, malignancies, tumors is 10%. GI diseases is 5%. Suicide, 3%, which is a major killer of our youngsters between 15 and 29. And various parasitic diseases is 3%. Now, if you look at cures for these diseases, most of them actually already have existing cures. So these are most of these are not actual unmet needs. But if you look at the causes of diseases, one of the things that stands out, what causes these diseases, is essentially cleanliness. So if we can clean water and clean air, as Director Karandikar said, we can actually obviate a lot of these problems, especially in rural areas where we don't have such a great deal of healthcare. So that's one initiative, and therefore the new institute will have to actually look at this socio-political this thing from a socio-political angle. For instance, in my hometown of Gorakhpur, encephalitis was a serious problem, but the current UP government essentially has solved that problem, and we should talk to Avnish Avasthi to see how they did it, and that has to be part of the new institute's approach. Now, if you look at the most of these diseases can be cured by making essentially tablets or oral medications available far and wide if you can get to the rural areas. But the unmet needs, especially from the Indian point of view, are the big pharma in the United States and Japan and Europe are not interested in solving problems like drug-resistant bacteria. So, and that's been a pet peeve of mine. I've actually talked to a lot of people in this company, in the old company, and it's because it's not a major need in the US or Japan or on the West. Nobody's talking about the drug-resistant bacteria. So for that, I think the new institute should collaborate. And the CDRI in Lucknow, they have the expertise, but they somehow move very slowly in these matters. So the new institute could actually collaborate with them and set upon a discovery of a new disease-resistant bacteria, antibacterials, because that will be a major unmet need. And again, when it comes to future in pharmaceutical research and drug discovery, I can tell you one thing, that one of the biggest unmet needs are two of the biggest unmet needs are in autoimmune disorders and cancer. The autoimmune disorders somehow don't seem to affect Indians as badly as they do in West. Maybe it's the food, maybe it's genetics, what have you. But it's lesser of a problem, but still a problem. And cancer, and most of in these areas, they have moved on from small molecules, even though there is a significant effort to find small molecule cures for these diseases. Most of it has gone to biologics. And again, the discovery of drugs, be they small molecule or antibodies or IgGs, it's all very time-consuming, resource-consuming, and so instead of focusing on that, I think playing up to the strength of the Indian industry, which is generic diseases, so the way the new institute could help out is better way to and more efficient ways of drug synthesis in the industry. Again, one of the companies that I worked very briefly in Bhopal, they were doing synthesis of their intermediates in methylene chloride, which is a known carcinogen. So things like that need to be addressed. And of course, just like India has suddenly become the champion in vaccine production, as well as if you look at all the generic drugs that are sold in India, in the US, they come from India. So that is an exceptional achievement as well. What we need to focus on is I don't think we have a good way to industrially produce biologics, so that could be another area of focus. Well, I think that's pretty much what I have to say. Like I said, we have strengths, and I think and I'm going to leave it to Rajiv Chopra to talk about it. But miniaturization of diagnostic tools, that's another way we can help the Indian healthcare industry, and remote accessibility out. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think they were excellent points. And from the perspective of time, we'll have to move to the next speaker now. So Professor Vijay Kumar, UPenn University, with collective behavior and biological and robotic systems, and he's also been working in the GRASP lab. Professor Vijay? Is he there, Professor Vijay? I don't see him at the moment. So we should now catch up with Rajiv Chopra, former MD Philips India, ex-global CEO of Home Lighting and Business Group for Royal Philips globally. He's also member executive board on Wharton School, and currently IBAN Illumination is his company focused on IoT lighting and wireless home automation. So we'll be happy to have your experience, Rajiv, and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. My experience in, medical is mostly to do with diagnostic medical equipment, which is what my ex-company was doing. So I've done a little bit of work, on that. I just have a few brief points, and I'm going to just build on some of what some of the other speakers said, and I'm going to try not to repeat. So first and foremost, I think I got to congratulate you, Dr. Karandikar. Your timing is on the dot. In fact, as of yesterday, we hear from the economic survey that the government outlay on healthcare is expected to go up to something like 3% from the current 1%. So, things are on the growth trend. The largest cases in India, I mean, the real trouble area are in the area of cardiology. They're in the areas of diabetes, oncology is getting to be a fairly big deal, and of course, pulmonary diseases. And I think the world is kind of seeing India as a big market for their equipment on this. And a lot of companies have, including my ex-companies, put up dev centers just to deal with the equipment, in these areas. I think the key things which India requires is, of course, affordability. If you're talking about MRI, the 3 Tesla MRI machines which are currently on offer, they cost anywhere between 10 crores, 12 crores. That's a bit too much. So I think affordability, and again, I'm talking from the perspective of diagnostic medical devices. So it's affordability, it's portability, and it's ruggedness. I think these are the 3 areas where, any research needs to look at these 3 things to build world-class cutting-edge devices. I think the development focus need not just be India, it's got to be for the world. I mean, everyone wants affordable machines, everyone wants rugged machines, everyone wants portable machines, and of course, a few other things. So advice would be develop for the world, not just for India, but do look at these 3 things. And finally, I think when you get down to the details, or individuals get down to their details in specific projects, they will get into a lot more things. I think as far as the centers are concerned, there's this whole thing on, and there have been some discussions before this on, do you want to be a specialist in a few areas? You want to be a generalist in a lot of areas? And I sort of veer to the side of being a specialist in a couple of areas, starting off with that, and then, expanding on to other areas. You can be a center of excellence only through specializing and not through just generalizing on everything. I think there needs to be a very clear-cut effort on the part of SMRT to tie up with companies who are, in the field, specifically companies which have set up India centers for R&D in the area. I know my ex-company Philips is one of them. I know GE does a little bit of work. I know Siemens has been wanting to do some work, and there are lots of other companies. So I think a concerted effort to tie up with these companies and work along with them on the R&D, and that will, I think, ensure that work comes in. I think that will ensure that funding comes in. I also like the idea of given the expertise of the institute in areas such as AI and things, you can actually come up with or you have credibility to come up with using cutting edge AI tools, etc., in just coming out with new imaging technologies or new algorithms to sort of take a look at images and then come out with things. So I think you've got everything going for yourself. I would say tie up with companies, be a specialist, and certainly look at these 2 or 3 areas I talked about. So I think very, very briefly, this would be my 2-bit here. Anything I can do to help in the tying up with companies or fundraising efforts, as far as companies is concerned, I have a little bit of experience and I offer my services, anything I can do to help. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And we'll require that, especially this partnering and your experience, plus your focus on specific companies and how do we get to them. So I think this will be very useful. So thank you, Rajiv. And we will move to Professor Rajesh Gupta, advisor, Tallwood Venture Capital, Mehta Foundation, and a few more companies. So Professor Rajesh Gupta, welcome you and would like you to share the views.
Well, thank you, Pradeep. This has been a fascinating conversation here. Anything to do with IIT always brings a smile in my face, at least for the fond memories. And truth be told, I wasn't listening to presentations as much as I was looking at the panel of people and how gracefully they have aged. Good to see our coordinators Sanjay Iyengar and Kaushal Chari have been really bringing us together quite a bit on this, and anything we can do. I don't have too many words of wisdom to offer here, but I'll share with the conversation where we left off at dinner, you might remember, at Del Mar with Shankar. Shankar had to go actually with, I think, another meeting here. But Shankar has been my he was my TA for Chemistry 101, and in last 25 years, a constant companion in guiding me on how health sciences have been improving. I have spent quite a bit of time in last so many years building data science, and perhaps some experience of that kind could be brought to bear. But I have to congratulate you. The vision you laid out at the dinner at that time, and what I heard today in Smart is exactly right on. There are obviously a lot of executional details that you can put together, but the idea that the IIT Kanpur moves into health sciences, whether it takes a generalist view or a specialist view, is a matter of detail that I think will work out. But there are a couple of things that I do want to mention, though, and one of them is that. And you have been working with Meta Foundation. I think Meta is helping a number of other organizations as well in specifically building data science capabilities. And there's a reason for that. It's not because just another hot area of computer science. It's because it is transforming our lives in significant ways. I mean, the fact that we are on this panel right now is really quite a bit to those advances. And when we come to health sciences, they are just right around the corner, whether it's imaging, whether it is metabolomics, whether it is sequencing. In fact, the very medicine, that vaccine we are going for, is a product of some of that analysis. So you do need to create an ecosystem for which you already have the elements in place, where the data science capabilities, and I say broadly, including probabilistic analysis, statistical analysis, computer science, of course, and what goes under machine learning and AI. All of those, when we talk about ecosystem, it's not just a question of the projects you choose. It's not a question of these companies you engage with, but it's also a question of which student talent pool you work with. So you do need to have programs, both undergraduate, graduate level. Research cannot happen without people, and people cannot happen without engagement of a constant flow of talent, which is what made IIT great. So I would say, that needs to be built. But beyond that, anything we can do, anything I can do, of course, our coordinators are here. We are very happy to work with you. And as always, an IITK mention definitely brings a smile to my face. So thank you.
Thanks, Professor Rajesh. And I think you have anyway been contributing in different ways. We look forward now more as things have to be scaled up faster. So with this, I'll welcome Professor Kaushal Chari, and we have heard about him a little bit, but we would like to hear from him as he currently serves Sheldon B. Lumar, the Dean and Professor of Information Technology Management. Professor Kaushal Chari.
Thank you, Pradeep. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, depending on where you are. And it's great to see some old friends. I'm really pleased to learn about IIT Kanpur's plan to launch the School of Medical Research and Technology. This is certainly a bold move and provides the opportunity to enhance national and international reputation by building a distinctive identity. But as Sanjeev Madila mentioned, we should leverage our strengths in this endeavor, while at the same time, we should retain our edge in other areas of excellence that we have. We cannot let it go. As an academic with some interest in healthcare management and currently advising a medical device startup, and like everyone else enduring the negative impacts of the current pandemic in our daily lives, in my view, this initiative cannot be timelier. While the scope of the proposed school is very broad to include medical education, medical devices, pharma, biotech, healthcare IT, I will share some numbers just related to medical devices industry to show the opportunity that is ahead of us. As per IBIS World, the market size for medical devices alone in US is estimated to be about 49.4 billion in 2021, while for India, it is currently around 11 billion and is projected to grow to about 65 billion by 2024. IIT Kanpur, through the establishment of this school, can be a contributor to the growth of healthcare industry in India by creating IP, launching startups, and training workforce for this highly knowledge-intensive industry. It would be great to see IITK develop affordable devices like the Butterfly portable ultrasonic device that is making a big impact these days. Any large strategic initiative requires significant investments. As per the brochure, phase alone would require about $65 million in investment, which I understand would need to come from private sources. Having been involved with raising philanthropic gifts in my day job, I know raising $65 million will not be easy, nor will it be quick. It will require the launch of a multi-year campaign and the collective efforts of alums from all batches and programs. A fundraising strategy could be to disaggregate the 65 million goal and package it into highly granular naming opportunities. Now, Professor Karandikar did mention about fundraising around centers of excellence. I would like to go even deeper. I would say being more granular with naming opportunities available for rooms, atriums, co-curricular or curricular programs, etc. I also want to mention that medical research in US is primarily driven by grants. Perhaps through this initiative, IITK can also leverage the expertise of faculty to get grants and fund a part of the infrastructure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Chari. So I think the team which has set out all this agenda, I think we will also be looking at how to make it happen. And so execution are some of the things that we'll be discussing a little later. We may exceed a little bit in time, but I think we would like to complete the discussion that we have started today. So thank you once again. And I'd like to invite Sanjeev Narayan, who's currently founder Job Train Enterprises, but he's with the ex-director Johnson Johnson and been working on medical devices at the current moment and also supply chain. So Sanjeev, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Pradeep, for having me on this particular talk. And it's great to see all of you there and hearing all of your work which is there. The concept and strategy of the School of Medical Research and Technology, the development of the ecosystem, how the biomedical research and medtech innovations has really gone about is really very creatable. And from my perspective as a medical and devices and supply chain professional in Johnson & Johnson, I think it is also awesome to note that medtech innovation and incubation system is working on medical devices for screening and diagnosis, and telemedicine, biosensors, and virtual realities, etc. So I do believe that by this time, a lot of work has been done in strategizing, and probably the need of the system is to ensure a flawless execution. So let me do one thing. I'll focus just on the sort of design and kinetics of the process of implementation, which would be probably a culmination of the amount of work which has already been put in. So as I can see that in the existing stages, we are ramping up the research and the incubation and other things. We have got a phase 1 where we have identified some 9 advanced research centers, and we have got a phase 2. I'll just take out some points which have been made by the previous speakers, but probably deserve a good amount of thinking as we go ahead in the implementation. The first is that, as Sanjeev mentioned earlier, and as Dave also mentioned, that we have a lot of synergies, we have a lot of strengths, we have a lot of capabilities which are existing right now. In terms of medical devices, if you see the way the delivery, the way the products or the way the services really happen, we not only create value through innovation, but we also drive reliable product supplies. We achieve affordable market access. But at the same time, there is a crucial thing which happens. There, we also deliver a flawless customer experience. Now, this is one thing which probably, which is probably, you know, sort of divorced from from, if you think of a person working in a lab churning out molecules or something. Uh, After the clinical trials are over, after a pharma product is made, then the the proving of the product is done. In case of medical devices, this life cycle continues till the product is actually validated or proven or set into the ecosystem or the system of the customer. So this is a particular thing wherein the current skills and capabilities of the people who are there right now in the ecosystem of ITK actually work out quite a lot. I mean, just to give you an example, let's say if Johnson and Johnson had a are already there in the wound care management system, and you know that we use sutures for suturing the wounds, and there is also a provision for an adhesive which has been developed, and the adhesive is used mostly in pediatrics for epidermal kind of wounds. Uh, in case the basic adhesive solution which is there is can be serviced in use and throw kind of packs, because there are issues of sterility of the formulation which is inside. So suppose you have to get it to a country like India, let's say that, then what are the two great things that strike you? The first is that you have to take care of the temperature variations, which might be a smaller thing to really do. But more importantly, the cost of a use and throw might not really work out in a country like India or for any emerging market for that matter. So you would probably like to have a bulk kind of pack, which would be more economical. But the problem then comes is that as soon as you dispense from that, what happens to the rest of the solution? Because the solution is exposed. So, you know, these are the kinds of delivery. It's not just the drug, it's the delivery, it is the packaging, everything which counts in a medical device. And that is where our current uh, uh, faculty members or students or people who are really working on this can really pool their capabilities together and arrive at solutions to that. So my just taking off from where Rajiv also mentioned some time back that he talked about medical devices for diagnostics. We would say that for medical devices, what we really need to see, if we really need to reach the people at the bottom of the pyramid and people who actually need the medical devices, then you need to have built-in affordability, accessibility, and efficiency in the medical devices. So how do we go around that? What I'm suggesting is that probably what we can do is that we can make a core group which would be there of faculty, students, alumni, uh, which would be looking at which could be looking at the focus groups that we need to attack. You know, we have been the previous speakers have pointed out how there should be a matrix kind of study done between what are the kind of needs of the market vis-a-vis what are the kind of things which are the unmet needs and not really serviced and those kinds of things. So that can be done. We can then connect, and we need to connect. We can connect with corporate world and with people who are there in the delivery of medical services, and we can actually see which are these leaders in these technologies, and we can look at what they actually do or what are they looking for, what are the gaps, and more importantly, which are the gaps which they are not ready to service. I mean, sometime back, I think
So
Anurag.
Sanjeev, one point. So last time also we discussed about affordable devices, how one could really look at and position also especially state of UP. But today, like Rajiv said, and also some people said that not only look at affordability but also a global play. So I think we are getting in the thoughts what you were saying, and there is a thought around the core group as well around this.
Great, great. So I think that's about it. I thought these are the things which had been brought out in the previous speakers also, and I thought I'll just go ahead and make them out. The other thing is, of course, that we need to once we do this, then we should be able to actually lead these programs with the business partners. Maybe we should be able to intervene. We should be able to monitor. We should be able to fix some time targets as to how we want to do it, and then we should shape the things as they go along. So probably this is what I think how should we should go about it. And thanks a lot for inviting me on the panel. And it's great to see all of you, and especially you, Dev. You were my student coordinator, so nice. It's a great meeting you.
Thanks, Sanjeev. Thanks, Sanjeev. So I think we have follow-up meetings, so this point is very well part of it. Now I would like to invite Professor Sudip Tamaiti, Department Chemical Engineering, TIFR, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, and he's also worked on something called biophotonics. Would like to hear from him, and he's our last speaker from the alum side, and then we will have Q&A.
Hi, Deep. Hi, Ajit, our batch coordinator. Thank you very much for inviting me for speaking here. Really excited that IITK is thinking about something big and exciting. I just wish we could have this discussion with a cup of coffee or beer in hand in the Hall 3 quad instead of doing this like this, probably in a year or so. So about who I am an academic. I'm one part a fundamental scientist and one part a scientific instrument builder. So on the science side, I deal with the molecular basis of diseases such as Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. And, I wear the hat of the chair of the chemical science department of the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research and, deal with being senior editors of journals of the American Chemical Society and all. So in that way, I have an inside view of many of the fundamental research that actually overlaps with biological and clinical applications in a very academic way. But I'm also an instrument builder, and I love building microscopes and spectrophotometers and in different ways. About 20 years ago, when I moved back to India from the US, I started building things which were not available. And we have had from my lab US patents and all. But most dear to my heart is we try to make instruments that actually beat the specifications set by this very high-end single molecule spectrometers and multiphoton microscopes and all that beats the specifications of world leaders like Zeiss and Leica. And we have had patents and we have had some success. With a little company from Kochi, there are 15 or 20 devices, pretty huge devices that are in India. And so you can say, let's not talk about those scale and all, but you can say I have had a ringside view of building absolute top-end scientific instruments from a third world country. And I know the problems and I know the opportunities. And so let me say, I'll be very brief about it because while I'm excited about the possibility of having a great hospital at IIT Kanpur, I think we need to honestly ask ourselves exactly what we want to do. Do you want to treat patients or well-engineered high-end medical devices? For the first, of course, you need a hospital. For the second, not necessarily so. So this is something we must keep in mind. And I'll presume that at least the second one is a goal, even if the first one is also a goal. So I'll talk about instruments, but I'll talk about something that most of you haven't talked about. It's been absolutely fascinating hearing many of my IITK, many of the IITK alums from different walks of life. But I'll say that sitting in India, being in India for the last 20 years, let's focus on at least as one of the possibilities, that's one of the starting possibilities on building absolutely top-end biomedical research instruments. Research instrument. I'm not talking about medical devices per se. Why? Why am I talking about that? Well, I have looked at many of the medical device companies, entrepreneurial companies, small companies that have started, incubated by different incubators all around India, including IIT Kanpur and other IITs and some other places. And I really admire them. But at the end of the day, many of them make copycat devices. And it is understandably so. If you know that a human life depends on the other end of the device, then you want to learn all about it, and it could be a life-saving device, and you want to study what exists and want to build that in your own backyard. And that's a very admirable goal. But this is not something that will be known in the world for. The world would not take that much of a notice, would not turn heads in the world. It is a worth doing thing, but there is a separate thing that you can actually is much easier to target. It is something like what Professor Karandikar was saying, that let's start the PhD program first and then we'll get to the BTech program. In some of the departments you are doing that. It's exactly like that. It's actually at a much smaller scale, easy to start in the instrument space. And there, instead of being a copycat, you can really uncage the bird. You can really think about what is the next thing that one can build. Because the specifications of the scientific instruments, specification of the biomedical research instrument that enables the discovery, tomorrow's discovery, are all known, and people tom-tom those specifications. If we can put our heads together, it is actually quite possible to beat the specifications and come up with something that is custom designed to achieve a goal that nobody has really achieved. So this is something that actually the best brains, which are some of them are there in IIT Kanpur, would be really excited about. And once you're successful, you are known in the world, because this is something that turns heads, that you put some specifications like Tesla did for the acceleration. Suddenly you have a Ferrari which is driven by an electrical motor. So it makes a name, it makes the world notice, it makes the researchers in the world notice that there is an instrument coming out of a little place called IIT Kanpur that actually is something that they want to buy. Even now, there are places which are looking for specifications that only that little Kerala company with our help can make. And wish Pramath was here. Ashoka University is buying a 500 crore machine right now, having that. But I'm not talking about myself. I'm not even talking about Indian thing. I'm talking about IIT Kanpur really building something just top of the line that people will suddenly talk about. It's easiest to do in the scientific and medical research instrument space. So what you do is actually you gain confidence. It's not either or. But once you have that name recognition, the regular medical device, which is possibly a little lower tech, is something that will be also recognized because you have made a name for yourself. And these two fields actually overlap quite a bit with each other. And the moment you have some expertise, some little new thing that if for fun you could put into that research instrument, you might be able to take that directly and translate it into something as a part of a medical instrument that will truly make it new. And there you'd have a winner. So maybe someday, I'll summarize, you'll be known for your medical professionals, your great doctors, etc. But to start with, build on the strengths that we already have, which is the science and engineering faculty. And for that, you don't even have to wait for the $60 million. We can start now. Make specifications of target 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 devices, get people together, let's start making them. And this is something that will be really a lot of fun and will actually be a torchbearer for the rest of the things to follow. Even fundraising may become easier after that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Mathi. And I think there were a lot of good points that came up. Start right now. So I would like to now hand it over to Rajiv and then Professor Jayant to take it to the summarization, Q&A, and conclusion. Yeah, Rajiv.
Thank you, Pradeep. And let me give a brief intro about myself. I'm a BTech 1973 electrical engineering. And I worked 40 years in corporate world, R&D, manufacturing, IT services in India and in the US. And last 6 years as the founding president of Shivnada University, a residential multidisciplinary university near Noida. And after that, I started sort of looking at IIT Kanpur, and my knowledge was old. And I think many of us in this group today have been out of IIT Kanpur for more than 30 years, and things have changed there. So about a year back, I started discovery of IIT Kanpur as to what it is now. And I heard a lot of things from people about be world class, be global, be the best, and so on. And that is what I was looking for. Talking to many faculty, different disciplines, different areas, and I found a common theme as to where I believe IIT Kanpur is really world class. And it's not everything, but let's say top 5. So we all know computer science started from IIT Kanpur, so that's left to cybersecurity. And in cybersecurity, IIT Kanpur is among the top few in the world. Bioscience, bioengineering is a 2-decade-old department, and this engineering medicine combination, we would be among the top set of institutes in the world. Then you have aerospace and your heavy drones. We all have seen the wind tunnel. That was the first one in the country, and that stays a very strong national facility now. So that's the third area where IIT Kanpur is number one. Flexible electronics, Abhay talked about, very unique. And anybody who comes to Kanpur, you must see the lab. I spent a day seeing the entire lab and what they do in bioengineering area as well. And environment, we heard about environment. So air pollution, water pollution, outstanding work being done by IIT Kanpur, including the cleaning of the Ganges and how to measure pollution level in the river through drones. So in bioscience, bioengineering, I think one of the things which all of us know about IIT Kanpur, they do not publicize what they are. I mean, I don't know how many of us know that the IIT Kanpur's incubator, the SIIC, and I do not know if Amitabh is still on the call here, is the country's #1 techno incubator. And with the BIRAC incubator added, they're doing a huge amount of incubation in bioscience area. And bioscience, bioengineering itself, as I speak now, there are nearly more than 80 faculty from different departments, computer science, chemical engineering, chemistry, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and of course, bioscience, bioengineering, working on different aspects of what you see on the SMRT. So we saw the COEs in SMRT, and we heard comments like, let's focus, let's do few things. But then the ecosystem which IIT Kanpur has in this space is pretty large. And Professor Ganesh is on the call here. I'd like to invite him. I mean, I know 81 faculties, but then there are a huge amount of other researchers who contribute to the research. And you would have noticed in one of the slides which Abhay presented, one of the quality of research is also seen by the number of citations per paper. I mean, you have publications and then citations per paper. And the bioscience, bioengineering papers, the citations are almost twice of the average of IIT Kanpur. And they are the highest in the country in terms of citation, even better than IISc, which is traditionally the highest in this space. So, Professor Ganesh, if you're there, if you're on mute, my question to you is, how big is the research ecosystem in IIT Kanpur? I talked about 81 faculties, and there must be postdocs, there must be PhDs, there must be masters who are working in the areas related to the COEs which we are planning for SMRT. Professor Ganesh, you'll have to unmute and talk.
Yeah, thanks, Rajiv. So I think on an average, most of the faculty will have about 4 to 5 PhD students. And of course, in the Department of Biological Science and Bioengineering, we have close to 100 PhD students and about 30 odd postdocs working already. But if you look into the other departments where faculty look into some of the the healthcare or meditech or bio related domains, it's not necessary that every student who is in that group would look into. Probably one or two may be looking into that. So I would anytime would think that close to 150 graduate students already looking into this domain. And if we have the SMRT in place, this number would be probably double or three times. That's what I expect. Yeah.
So if I do a quick math, we're talking about 80 faculty, then about 300 or so PhD students, and there would be maybe another 100 postdoc. So ecosystem about 500 researchers in this area of SMRT COEs. Is that a right way to put it?
Yes, I would certainly, say that.
Yeah. So what I want to tell the audience here is that bioscience bioengineering is a world-class department by any standards, and the ecosystem is not small. I mean, in 20 years, you have 500 researchers working in different fields, and SMRT is multidisciplinary. I heard about AI, we heard about robotics, we heard about various things. It is multidisciplinary there. The other thing which I want to comment here is in terms of the knowledge base that I'm seeing in today's group, in the people who are in the areas related to SMRT, is phenomenal, far more than what I expected. And it was a similar story last Saturday. And in this just 10 batches, I'm seeing almost 40, 50 alums who are doing great work in this space. So we are definitely going to leverage that. But what I do admire is the enthusiasm from all of you. I'm really overwhelmed by the support from the alums here to say we will help you in fundraising, because that's the first step. I mean, everything else will follow. And we have two people here in this call. One is Abhay introduced Kapil Kaul. He is in the call still, and he will come back to you. The other person is Rajiv Ranjan. We mentioned about him as well. He is based in California, and he is president of IITK Foundation. So after this cause, we are going to reach out. Kapil is going to reach out to many of you, and some of you, there are some people who could not be in the audience today for variety of reasons. We will connect up and take it forward there. In the meantime, if there is anything which you want to write, there is an email ID which we created, open, accessible by multiple people. It was on the deck which was sent to you. I'll repeat that: smrtiitk@gmail.com. Very simple.
So I think, Rajiv, let them use this smrt@iitk.ac.in, which I mentioned.
That's even easier. smrt@iitk.ac.in. And you can just write them, you'll get a response there. And we will also reach out. Professor Abhay, you have anything else to add here?
No, I think nothing much to add.
Yeah. And I've been seeing that all the questions have been coming and they've been responded. So I'm not picking up any specific questions because the answers have been given there. I would now hand over to Jayan to give his concluding comments, and then we close the event today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rajiv. It has been a wonderful brainstorming session. Again, I met you, some of you, through a physical reunion. I've written to you, and perhaps you have seen my emails requesting a fund. It is an honor and pleasure to at least see and some of you through this channel. And hopefully we will be conducting some of the events this year. The COVID situation allows us to do that. So this platform at least has been very instrumental in bringing 5 batches together. And that's something which is not common. And I think this is a wonderful initiative. Thanks to Pradeep and Rajiv to take this forward. And this is a second event. And we hope that we'll be conducting such events more over the year. Not just for just SMRT, but in general, we would like to leverage this platform to bring two important elements. One is the institute and one is alumni together. So we have received numerous suggestions. I will just summarize. Most of them have talked around leveraging existing strength of IIT Kanpur, which everyone agrees that, and focus on a select area, which anyway we are the proposals and the detailed report which was made on SMRT was kept in, these ideas were kept in mind. Many research ideas, particularly drug discovery aspects and the device related things, instrumentation, which are already making use of the existing technology or existing manpower and intellect, that was shared. And also some thoughts on the fundraising and something which it directly deals with my department, which I'm handling. Those who are not much aware of my background, I will just take 1 minute to tell you that I'm also alum of IIT Kanpur. I graduated in '97 in chemical engineering, and as a faculty, I'm here since 2005. And I've been taking this responsibility since July 1st, 2019. So it's been over 1.5 years now. So what we plan to do is that over the next 2 weeks or two, we will be reaching out. So you will see Kapil's mail or my mail in general to each of you, and to seek what kind of role and advice and partnership which you would like to take it, and as well as to take further, this particular thoughts going, taking, kind of taken together as a part of the journey. So it has been, in my opinion, it's an excellent meeting. A lot of brainstorming, a lot of food to thought. And for that, I would like to thank, starting with the Professor Karandikar, to taking his time from his really tight schedule. I know that he's extremely busy, and I'm sure that all of you are. And thank you for taking your time as well. The speakers for great discussion and sharing their thoughts. Thank you, Pradeep and Rajiv, for organizing such a wonderful meeting. Sandeep and his team for Voxmeet platform. And actually, this is a much better experience, and I can see that every meeting it's going to get stronger, this platform. And Pradeep is after this platform, so that makes a lot of alum supporting alum kind of an example for this. I would like to thank all the batch coordinators, and I actually have been very lucky to meet many of them. Pradeep Parik, Sanjeev Madila, which we have interacted over email for your 83 fund. Sanjay Iyengar through Alumni Association, and a lot of interesting events there. Randeep Basin during your reunion, and Ajit Das in the last event which we had. Thank you once again for making this happen, and wishing you all a very good night and a good day for those who are in the US, and hopefully we'll be in touch. So bye from my side.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Thanks.
guys. Thank you.
Pleasure being a part of it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.